Assassin's Creed 2, the highly acclaimed sequel to 2007's Assassin's Creed, and a game that many consider to be the best, or at least one of the best games of the franchise, with the best historical protagonist, Ezio Auditore da Firenze. It was released on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in November 2009 and PC in March 2010. A remastered version of the game was also included as part of the Ezio collection, which also included its two sequels, Brotherhood and Revelations, on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 in November 2016. This video is focused on the original release on Xbox 360 to get a proper feel for how the game holds up in 2024, though at one point I didn't think that was possible. As some of you might have seen, I put a post up in the community tab and on Twitter. I'll never refer to it as X. I had some issues with trying to record footage for this video. I originally got about a third of the way through the game when my save data randomly disappeared. At that point I thought I must have done something wrong in my tired state that I accidentally overwrote my save, so I begrudgingly started again. My second attempt, I got towards the end of sequence 3, it started to receive a strange error that the storage device I was using had been removed, so it was unable to be saved. I thought it was a bit strange as I was playing on the Xbox One S, so it's either using the internal hard drive, which I definitely hadn't removed, or the cloud, as I know many backwards compatible versions of Xbox 360 games use. Since I was so close to the end of the sequence, I decided to at least try and finish it off, and then I would check things. After completing the sequence, I tried quitting to the main menu, at which point it just froze up on me. Fearing the worst, I forced quit the game through the Xbox interface and started the game up with a little trepidation. After clicking start, where you would view any save, there was nothing there. At this point I realised that I wasn't the issue, and there must be something more going on. To the internet I went, where I found posts on both the Microsoft forum and Reddit regarding the same problem, and it has apparently been a bug for some time with no hopes of it being fixed. I was starting to lose hope that I would be able to complete the video using the 360 version of the game and would have to fall back on the Ezio collection version, which would have been fine, but against the spirit of how I want to complete this. I might play for a future video if there's interest there for it. When I was about to give up and started the download for the Ezio collection, I found a post on the Microsoft forum with tips that worked for them, so I thought it was worth a try and give AC2 on Xbox 360 one more try. Thanks to the poster, their advice seemed to have worked, and I was able to complete the video in the way I wanted. Now let's discuss the game. As a warning, this section is going to contain spoilers, so if you haven't played the game yet and want to, feel free to skip to the next section of the video, timestamps below. There's a lot more story in AC2 than there was in the first one, so this section will be a bit longer. Oh, and apologies in advance for butchering any names of places in my Scottish accent. The story picks up directly from where AC1 left off, with the modern day protagonist, Desmond Miles, able to see symbols above his bed. It doesn't take long for the peace and quiet to be broken, as Lucy Stillman, who had previously revealed to Desmond that she was also an assassin, bursts into the room covered in blood. She instructs Desmond to quickly jump into the Animus, where he isn't in the memories of Altair in 1191 like usual, but in Renaissance Italy, where he witnesses the birth of Ezio Auditore da Firenze in the year 1459. Desmond is quickly pulled out of the Animus again, and he and Lucy make a daring escape of the Abstergo facility which has been holding Desmond captive. Lucy takes Desmond to an assassin safehold where he's introduced to Sean Hastings, a rude and patronising historian and analyst, and Rebecca Crane, a more friendly technical whiz who deals with the new Animus. Desmond is put into this new and improved Animus, where he is now in control of a much older, charming but reckless Ezio in the year 1476. The action begins straight away as Ezio and a small group of his supporters are preparing for a fight with his rival, Vieri de Pazzi, who is flanked by his supporters. Ezio's group wins the brawl with the help from his older brother Federico, though Ezio took a few scrapes in the process. After being patched up by a local doctor, instead of going home, Ezio decides to visit his girlfriend Cristina Vespucci against his brother's best advice. Ezio spends the night with Cristina and quickly needs to make a break for it after being discovered by her father, who calls the guards on Ezio. After making his way home, Ezio is greeted by his disapproving father, Giovanni, who does admit that Ezio reminds him of himself at that age. Ezio is then asked to assist with tasks from his father, younger brother Petruccio, his sister Claudia, and his mother Maria, who introduces Ezio to a local young and up-and-coming artist, Leonardo da Vinci. Yes, that da Vinci. Everything appears to be going well, until suddenly Ezio's father and brothers are arrested. Ezio discovers where they are being held and manages to find a way to speak with his father. He reveals that they have been framed for a crime they have not committed, and Giovanni instructs Ezio to go back to the house and look for a hidden chest which contains a set of robes, a sword, a broken hidden blade, a mysterious codex page, and a letter which has been delivered to a family friend, Uberto Alberti, which proves the innocence of the Auditore family and should get them released. The next day, Uberto is presiding over the trial and execution of the imprisoned members of the Auditore family, where Giovanni is proclaiming their innocence as per the letter delivered to Uberto, who denies any knowledge of such letter and has betrayed the Auditore family. Ezio is unable to do anything, and his father and brothers are executed in front of him. As Ezio is now also a wanted man, he is forced to flee the scene, where he finds refuge in a brothel run by a woman called Paola, who is also taken in his mother and sister, who have thankfully survived the ordeal. After learning some skills from the courtesans, Ezio pays a visit to Leonardo da Vinci, who looks into fixing the hidden blade and decipher the codex page that was found amongst his father's belongings. Once fixed, Ezio had his eyes set on his first target and taken revenge on behalf of his family, Alberto Alberti. Ezio tracks Alberto to the Basilica di Santa Croce, where he bides his time and strikes him down, stabbing him multiple times in the chest in his rage and declaring to the crowd that the Auditores are not gone and survive through him. With Alberto out of the way, and Ezio still very much being a wanted man, he decides to leave Florence with his mother and sister with the intention of travelling to his uncle's villa in Monteriggioni. On the way there, the path is blocked by Ezio's old rival Vieri de Pazzi. After a short fight breaks out, Ezio and his family are saved by an unknown man and his mercenaries. The man reveals himself to be Ezio's uncle Mario, in a cheesy yet slightly amusing way.
Do you recognize me? It's me, Mario!
Mario escorts the family to Monteriggioni, where the Auditore villa stands in disrepair. Mario reveals to Ezio that he and Giovanni come from a long line of assassins, and execution occurred due to Giovanni uncovering a conspiracy being planned by their sworn enemy, the Templars. Mario teaches Ezio the way of the assassins in the hope that he will join the Brotherhood, but Ezio decides he still wants to continue on to Spain, using new skills learned to help protect his mother and sister. Mario is disappointed by this, and decides to take his men and go after Vieri, who has been continuously trying to attack Monteriggioni. Ezio has a change of heart due to knowing that the attacks have partly been due to him, so he follows Mario to help him take out Vieri once and for all. Once caught up with his uncle, they start the siege on the town that Vieri is taking refuge in. Ezio tracks down Vieri and spots him conversing with members of the family, as well as unknown Spaniards, at which point it is revealed that he is a member of the Templar Order. Ezio finally takes down Vieri and returns to Monteriggioni. Mario reveals to Ezio that the Spaniard he saw is Rodrigo Borgia, the leader of the Templar Order in Italy. Instead of fleeing to Spain, Ezio decides his goal is now track down the members of the Templars who are behind what has befallen his family and resulted in the death of his father and brothers. Ezio decides to first travel back to Florence, where he seeks assistance from the leader of the local thieves called La Volpe. La Volpe informs Ezio of the secret meeting of the Templars happening that evening. Ezio makes his way through the catacombs into the city, where he is able to eavesdrop into the meeting and hears the plan to kill the Medici family, who are in control of Florence, and replace them with Templars. Ezio goes to the ambush point, where he is unable to save one member of the Medici family, Giuliano, but his brother Lorenzo is able to escape with injuries. After ensuring Lorenzo returns home safely, Ezio goes after Vieri's father, Francesco de Pazzi, and manages to take him down as well. Upon returning to Monteriggioni, Ezio relays the translations Leonardo is able to decipher from the codex pages already found to Mario. The codex reveals a prophecy about a vault which can only be opened using two ancient artifacts called Pieces of Eden, and a prophet who would be able to use them to open the vault. They realise they must be what the Templars are after, and how urgent the task is to stop them doing so. After completing some further training with Mario, Ezio receives word regarding another Templar member of the Pazzi family, Jacopo de Pazzi, and his followers. Ezio takes out the followers one by one, where he is able to gather information that leads him to Jacopo as well as Rodrigo Borgia. Rodrigo is not happy with Jacopo failing and stabs him before revealing that he was aware that Ezio was watching nearby. Rodrigo flees, leaving Ezio to the mercy of the guards, who stood no chance against the now well-trained assassin. Ezio mercifully decides to finish the job on Jacopo and put him out of his own misery. Ezio's next target meant he had to travel to Venice. En route to the floating city, Ezio bumps into Leonardo, whose cart is broken down conveniently along the way to Venice. Ezio assists Leonardo in fixing his cart just in time for being attacked by Templar guards. The guards pursue them for quite a distance, when Ezio decides to stay behind and fend them off and allow Leonardo to continue on. After successfully doing so, Ezio joins up with Leonardo again on the outskirts of Forli, where they are trying to board a boat that will carry them on to Venice. Ezio is informed he is unable to do this, as he doesn't have the required pass needed to make the journey. Just at that moment, a woman can be heard crying for help as she has been stranded on an island in the bog surrounding the area. Ezio grabs a boat and goes to her aid. Once back on the mainland, the woman expresses her gratitude by arranging passage to allow Ezio to continue on to Venice. Leonardo reveals to Ezio that the woman he saved was Caterina Sforza, who is married to the ruler of the nearby Forli. At this point, Desmond has pulled out the animus to give him a break and also determine if he's been able to pick up any skills from Ezio via the bleeding effect. Desmond effectively climbs and jumps around the safe house warehouse while completing a task set by Lucy. Throughout this, and on his way to rest, Desmond starts to see flashes of the type of people he would see in the Animus, and more specifically, in Altair's time. Desmond then abruptly finds himself in control of Altair, even though he's not in the Animus. As Altair, he appears to be chasing someone dressed in Templar robes. Altair follows the Templar to the top of the tower, who revealed that it is Maria Thorpe, the woman who was a decoy for the leader of the Templars in Jerusalem, Robert de Sade, when Altair went to assassinate him. Altair despaired Maria as she wasn't his intended target, and now it appears that they have gotten close as they get intimate. Desmond is then awoken back in reality, where he once again enters the Animus. Ezio, now in Venice, discovered his next target, Emilio Barbaggio. While trying to plan out how he was going to get to Emilio, Ezio gets involved with a local gang of thieves headed up by Antonio de Magnis and a female thief called Rosa, who also want to take Emilio down and liberate Venice from his grasp. Ezio decides to provide assistance to the thieves, where in return they would teach him some new skills to assist with getting to Emilio. Ezio scales the wall of Emilio's palace, where he eavesdrops on a conversation with an unknown man before taking him out. Antonio reveals to Ezio that the man Emilio was meeting with is called Carlo Grimaldi. Ezio tracks down Carlo and witnesses him having a meeting with fellow Templars as well as Rodrigo himself. He overhears them plotting to poison the Doge of Venice, Giovanni Mosnigo, and have him placed with one of the Templars and Emilio's cousin, Marco Barbaggio. Ezio desperately tries to devise a way into the Palazzo Ducale, where they are planning to carry out the poisoning, but it seems to be a lost cause due to the high fencing surrounding it and would only be possible to get in from above. Ezio remembers seeing a flying machine that Leonardo had built when he assisted him on the way to Venice. With the assistance of fires being set off around the city, Ezio is able to use the flying machine to infiltrate the palazzo from above, but he is too late to save the Doge. Ezio, however, does manage to take out Carlo, though in the confusion of the situation, it looks like Ezio has taken out both men and he becomes the most wanted man in Venice. Luckily, this happens to coincide with Carnivale, which is kicked off in the city, so Ezio is able to use the mask to hide his identity, but still keeps the same outfit on because that apparently doesn't matter. Ezio chooses his next target to be Marco Barbaggio, who is now taking up the mantle of Doge, but realises that this won't be easy. Ezio is advised that Marco is holding a party, and if Ezio completes some Carnivale games, he could win a golden mask that will gain him entry to said party. Ezio successfully completes the games, but is cheated out of the prize by another Pazzi member, Silvio de Pazzi, who intimidates the judges into giving the prize to one of his main guards instead, Dante Moro. Ezio tracks down and is able to steal the mask from Dante, thus gaining entry to Marco's party, where he is able to take him down. Ezio knows his work isn't complete as Silvio and Dante are still out there. Working with the leader of the local mercenaries, Bartolomeo de Alviano, Ezio is able to confront and take down both Silvio and Dante before they are able to board a ship. In his final words, Dante confesses that everything has been happening in Venice was just a distraction and they were ultimately trying to sail to Cyprus. In his time trying to decode the found codex pages, Leonardo is able to decipher a message that states, "The prophet will appear when the second piece is brought to the floating city." Determined that the Templar ship to Cyprus was to find the second piece of Eden, Ezio spies on the returning Templar ship where he spots a chest that must contain the artifact. Ezio disguises himself as one of the guards entrusted with delivering the chest to its intended destination, which turns out to be directly to Rodrigo Borgia himself. Ezio reveals himself to Rodrigo and the fight ensues between the two, with Ezio yearning to take down the one ultimately responsible for the death of his father and brothers. As the fight continues and Rodrigo realises that he is losing, he calls guards for backup. Ezio's not alone though, as he receives backup himself in the form of his uncle Mario and the other faction leaders he's met through the last decade. Eventually Rodrigo flees, leaving the piece of Eden behind. Ezio wishes to give chase but is stalked by his newfound allies. They reveal to Ezio that they're all actually assassins, and Ezio himself is the prophet mentioned in the prophecy. Ezio is then officially initiated into the Assassin's Brotherhood. The next two sequences are marked as being corrupted in the base game, and were only originally fixed as part of the game's DLC. Like the game, I will skip these for now and pick this up in a later section discussing this DLC a little further. As time has gone on, Ezio has been able to gather all codex pages which are displayed on the wall in Monteriggioni. Using his Eagle Vision and the Apple of Eden, the artifact kept from Rodrigo Borgia, it is discovered that the pages contain a map highlighting certain locations around the world. It discovered that the location of the vault that prophecy mentioned just so happens to be in Rome under the Vatican, and Rodrigo Borgia is sitting right on top of it, as in the time since last confronting him, he has now become the Pope. It was also deduced that the second piece of Eden mentioned in the prophecy was most likely the papal staff, now held by Rodrigo as well. Ezio travels to Rome and was able to infiltrate the Vatican, where he tried taking Rodrigo out from above, but hesitated delivering the final blow. In that time, Rodrigo was able to recover and use the staff to try and take out everyone in the surrounding area, but Ezio was unaffected due to him carrying the apple which he had brought with him and protect him from the staff's powers. A fight ensues again between the two, where with assistance with the power bestowed upon him by the apple, Ezio beats Rodrigo. Realising he can't beat Ezio, Rodrigo is able to sweep the feet from under him, which allows him to steal the apple from Ezio. Now unprotected from the effects of the staff, Rodrigo used it to mobilise Ezio and stabs him. He then disappears in the direction of the vault, and now he has both pieces of Eden that can be used to open it. Ezio has managed to survive due to his armour and follows Rodrigo, who is unable to open the vault. One final battle commences between Ezio and Rodrigo without them using their powers. Again, Rodrigo is no match for Ezio, who finally finishes the job. Ezio is now able to enter the vault, where he encounters a hologram of a woman called Minerva. She reveals her history, which mentions that her people created humans, but it ended in a war with the two races. There was then a catastrophic event that took place which almost destroyed the planet and resulted in a large number of casualties on both sides. The world was rebuilt and Minerva's race faded away, but these vaults remained, containing a warning that the major event was close to occurring again. Ezio, confused by what he was hearing, tried to ask Minerva questions, but she told him that he was not the person the message was meant for, but it was for someone called Desmond, and he was the only one that could save the planet. With everyone now totally confused, Desmond has abruptly pulled out the Animus as Warren Vidic, the person who held Desmond captive of Astergo, and his Templar agents had discovered the location. Desmond and Lucy fend them off with Vidic retreating, but realising they cannot stay there, the assassin group flee to a new location. While maintaining the framework created in AC1, Assassin's Creed 2 improves upon its gameplay in most areas. The climbing, traversing and parkour, while still frustrating at times with Ezio sometimes choosing to go his own way or not want to grab onto what looks like a perfectly fine ledge, is a lot smoother and quicker. At a later point in the game, Ezio also learns the ability to jump while climbing buildings, which makes harder to reach places more accessible and scaling a building a little bit quicker. There is still the potential for enemies to throw projectiles at Ezio if in the process of chasing him, which is very frustrating as Ezio loses grip and fall, and they seem more relentless than enemies in AC1, but it seems impossible to recover without falling at the feet of a group waiting to take Ezio out. Horse traversal also returns from AC1. It doesn't feel like much has changed in terms of controlling the horse, and they can still only be used while outside a city's boundaries. Gondolas can be found and used mostly in Venice, and is a single occurrence of controlling a horse and carriage as part of the mission, while escorting Da Vinci between Florence and Forlì. The health/synchronisation aspect has been changed where it won't automatically refill when not in combat, but only when Ezio is taking minor damage. When more major damage has been sustained, Ezio must either visit one of the many doctors spread across each location, or use medicine, which can be attained by purchasing it from a doctor. Ezio's health can also be increased by collecting codex pages and having them be deciphered by Leonardo da Vinci, as well as purchasing armour from a weapon shop. Speaking of purchasing things, a major addition to AC2 is the economy aspect. Ezio will gain money through such things as completing missions, looting enemies and chests, and investing in the repairs of buildings in Monteriggioni, which will generate more income that Ezio can collect from a chest in the villa. Money can be used on one of the many shops such as the aforementioned doctor and weapon shops, as well as tailors where pouches can be obtained to hold more medicine, for example, as well as dyes that can be used to change the colour of Ezio's clothes. There is also an art store where artwork can be bought for the Auditore Villa, which increases the income received. Ezio can also hire the services of either mercenaries, thieves or courtesans, which can be used to distract guards in their own way. The courtesans can also double up as a blend opportunity that will follow Ezio around, but be careful when passing any guards as 2 of the 4 hired will automatically go to them, which gets a bit frustrating when trying to use them to blend. The final way Ezio can use his money is to throw it on the ground as a distraction method, as it will draw most nearby NPCs in trying to scramble to pick it up. AC2 has also improved how the crowds can be used for blending. In AC1, only certain groups of NPCs could be used to blend and hide from guards, while AC2 allows Ezio to blend with most groups even when they are moving. Just like AC1, hay bales and piles of leaves, as well as the pagoda-type structures on the rooftops and seated NPCs can be used to hide from guards, but this is not always a surefire way to escape enemies, as they will often check these hiding spots as still on alert and get closer. Unlike Altair, Ezio is able to swim without being desynchronised, and he can hide underwater for a short period of time as a new hiding spot. AC2 has removed the status system used in AC1, along with the annoying continual beeping, which would show yellow or red depending how noticeable Altair was, and replaced it with a notoriety system. This is shown by the icon on the left of the health bar, which will fill with a red outline the more wrong Ezio commits, such as high profile assassinations and more brutal kills by slashing away with the hidden blade for example. Up until the red line completes, Ezio can still move around fairly free without much bother from guards, except the rooftops still where they will keep shouting at Ezio to get down. Once the red line completes, Ezio becomes notorious and will be attacked by any guard on sight. The guards in AC2 seem hyper aware to Ezio, especially when moving quickly or they catch him out the corner of their eye, which can get very frustrating, especially when trying to complete missions where it fails immediately if noticed. This is not helped with the stealth aspect of the game being mainly limited to blending with groups or hiding spots, which doesn't help well on rooftops, with enemies everywhere, or having to cross an open location. AC2 though has introduced a proximity area where guards will keep chasing you, similar to other games like Grand Theft Auto. When Ezio is being chased by the guards but he's out of sight, an orange circle is shown on the minimap. That means if Ezio gets outside of that circle, most of the time he will have gone away and the guards will stop chasing him. Ezio was able to decrease his notoriety by either tearing down wanted posters himself, bribing local heralds to stop speaking about him, or killing informants. These actions all contribute to removing a different amount of notoriety, with removing posters being the lowest and killing the for removing the most. Other minor yet noticeable quality of life improvements to the game is the introduction of the day and night cycle, which adds an atmosphere to the game, especially with some missions taking place at a certain time. Another addition is that of subtitles. When I went back to play AC1, I couldn't believe it didn't have subtitles. They have now been added to the game, with Desmond even making reference to it in an optional conversation with Rebecca, and is put down to it being a feature of the Animus 2.0. I would say subtitles are definitely required in parts of the game, especially since there are parts where the characters speak Italian, another factor that's chalked up to a bug with the new Animus, and without the subtitles being enabled, you'll be clueless of what's being said, as I wanted to capture footage without subtitles getting in the way. Combat has been built upon in a positive way in AC2. General weapons such as a sword, dagger, hidden blade and throwing knives carry over from AC1, but that is not all that is available to Ezio. In the weapon shop, Ezio will be able to buy additional types of primary weapons such as maces and axes, and can use spears that are carried by a certain type of enemy. Unlike AC1, where the hidden blade can only be used to assassinate unsuspecting enemies or to counterkill, Ezio can use it to keep slashing away at enemies, which can be pretty effective. Also throughout the game, Da Vinci decrypts codex pages which reveal how to create additional weaponry such as a dual hidden blade to take down two close standing enemies at once, a poison blade which can cause enemies stuck with it to start swinging their weapon around for a time, striking nearby enemies before succumbing to the effects of the poison, and a hidden gun which acts similar to the throwing knives, but they're not always a one hit kill like in the first game when encountering tougher enemies, while the gun is, though it takes a couple of seconds to fully line up a shot. Assassinations can also be carried out from a hidden location while hanging off a ledge below an enemy and from above. While in combat, it's similar to AC1 in terms of a group of enemies surrounding Ezio who can block most strikes and counter with the hit of a button, though I would say the enemies seem more aggressive in this game, where you might get two taking swipes at you, which can get Ezio into trouble fairly quickly. The types of enemies in AC2 have also been expanded to some that are tougher and faster. There are still the weak enemies where you can counter kill with no issue, but then you will start to encounter enemies that will take around 3 to 4 counters before they can be counter killed. There are also massive enemies whose attack cannot be countered. For this type of enemy, you will need to either dodge their attack or use a new unarmed counter, which will steal the weapon from the boot of an enemy. Once the weapon is in Ezio's hands, you can execute a one-hit kill on the enemy, which results in some nice, yet brutal kills. The mission structure and story have been greatly improved in AC2. As highlighted in my video looking at AC1, I discussed how a major criticism of the game was its repetitive missions and at times boring and lack of story. AC2 has improved the story greatly, as outlined in my previous story section of this video, and the missions have more variety, ranging from tailing missions to chasing missions and fighting large groups of enemies, sometimes all these in the space of a single mission. Story is also weaved through each mission, where it doesn't feel like they're just there for filler. There are also more side things to do in AC2, after lack of really any side content in its predecessor. Scattered amongst the map are courier missions, which will usually involve delivering a letter from point A to B, races usually set up by thieves to see if Ezio is truly faster than them, and contract missions where Ezio will visit a pigeon coop and be tasked with someone to take out. There are also assassin tombs that can be completed, which are usually large areas that Ezio will need to navigate along a set route to eventually reach an assassin seal. These seals can be used back at Monte Regione to unlock Altair's armour, which has been sealed away underneath the villa. There are also Templar layers which are similar to the Assassin's Tomb in terms of them being an extra area to work through until reaching the area where the chests contain a good amount of money for Ezio to collect. These also include a little side story to make things more interesting. As far as I'm aware, these were originally only included as part of certain editions of the game, as well as potentially later via DLC. Hidden glyphs can also be found around the different cities Ezio visits. These are symbols often found in the side of a building that Ezio can only properly see and interact with while in eagle vision. These are also brought to the player's attention through an eye icon showing you the picture of the current location that pops up when near, which is stored in the in-game database. When interacted with, the player is presented a minigame which can include a circular picture/painting made up of multiple rings. These need to be matched up correctly to allow progress. Solving all the puzzles in the glyph will often result in a message from the mysterious Subject 16, the person that Abstergo experimented on via the use of the Animus before Desmond, and a very short video clip. Once all glyphs are collected, the gathered clips must be put in order to unlock a very strange video. Similar to AC1, there is only a single collectible in this game, and this time in the form of feathers. These are originally introduced as part of an early mission where Ezio's younger brother Petruccio asks Ezio to get them for him for a reason that is never really revealed. Ezio can then find the rest of the 100 feathers scattered around the world and return them to a chest in Auditore Villa. Once all are collected, his mother Maria interacts with him for the first time since leaving Florence, and they reward Ezio with the Auditore cape that seems to make Ezio permanently notorious. Gee, thanks Mum. Again, there'll be spoilers in this section for the AC2 DLC, so if you haven't played and want to, feel free to skip to the conclusion in the next section. Assassin's Creed 2 joined the growing DLC trend at the time and decided to release some content post-launch, a practice that continued to this day. The two major pieces of DLC released for AC2 were the Battle of Forley and Bonfire of the Vanities, which were the previously missing sequences 12 and 13 that were classed as being corrupt and inaccessible in the base game, but have now been fixed by Rebecca. In reality, it was revealed that both of these sequences were supposed to be included in the base game, but were ultimately removed due to time constraints, which drew frustration from some players. The Battle of Forley DLC picks up after Ezio is able to procure the Apple of Eden from Rodrigo Borgia and has officially joined the Assassin's Brotherhood. Ezio meets up with his fellow assassin to try and decide how to keep the apple safe. It is eventually decided that it should be sent to Caterina's Sforza in Forley. Upon travelling to Forley, Ezio finds the city under attack led by brothers called Ciccio and Ludovico Orsi. It is revealed that they are doing this on behalf of Rodrigo Borgia to try and obtain a map stored there that shows the locations of all the codex pages which can be used to find the prophesied vault. The brothers kidnap Caterina's children, who Ezio was able to save while taking out Ludovico in the process. It turns out that this was a ruse to draw Ezio away from Forley so that Ciccio could steal the apple which had been given to Caterina. Ezio tracks Ciccio down and takes him out, but his success of reclaiming the apple is short-lived as he is stabbed by a mysterious black-robed man missing a finger who escapes with the apple. Ezio is nursed back to health, and the mystery of how Ezio became bearded is revealed. Ezio discovers that the robed man goes by the name of Girolamo Savonarola, and that is where the first DLC ends. Bonfire of the Vanities picks up from the previous DLC, where Ezio tracks Savonarola to Florence, where he's using the power of the apple to take control. Ezio goes about taking out his 9 lieutenants to try and draw Savonarola out of hiding. It works as he's faced with an angry mob, which allows Ezio the opportunity to disarm Savonarola of the apple and allow the public to get at him. They tie him to a stake to be burned, but Ezio takes mercy on him from the fight and assassinates him before the flames can take hold, and he delivers a rousing speech to the gathering public. This is where this DLC ends. Both these DLCs are pretty short and don't add much to the overall story, though the Battle of Forley is probably the better of the two in terms of story and missions available, as Bonfire of the Vanities is basically just trying to take out a target, with some of them being very frustrating while trying not to be seen as notoriety becomes full and the previously mentioned hypersensitive enemies just get in the way. Both DLCs do add something extra, as Battle of Forley introduces only repeatable mission where Ezio can use Da Vinci's flying machine to go around this area, but there are no objectives tied to this. Bonfire of the Vanities adds in the previously inaccessible southern area of Florence, but there really isn't much to do here as only tied to the DLC missions. Playing the DLC packs in the 360 for the first time in many years, I didn't remember them being so buggy, but boy were they. Battle of Forley was played with characters missing body parts such as Machiavelli missing the front of his torso as well as one of his arms, Caterina's son missing his whole upper body, and our daughter horrifyingly missing her face except for eyes and mouth, which made me reminiscent of the mess I released with AC Unity, so it appears some things didn't change. Bonfire of the Vanities was less buggy, but there were sections where the character's audio was very echoey, and then I ran to the missing body part in the final cutscene of the DLC. I am unsure of how much the DLC cost when originally released, but it can be picked up now for £2.69 or $3.40 each. I don't think I can say that these are worth purchasing due to how unfinished they seem and irrelevant to the overall story of the game, but if you do wish to play them, I would probably suggest doing so in the Ezio Collection version, as they are automatically included and I don't remember the same bugs when I played it in the last couple of years. So, does AC2 hold up in 2024? I would say for the most part, yes. I will say that AC2 is probably in my top 3 AC games, with Ezio probably being my favourite assassin, so I always have a soft spot for the game. I will also admit, as often can be the case when revisiting older games, that my memory of it was slightly tarnished due to bugs, gameplay elements and graphical issues that crept up I don't remember from playing it the first time around 2009. Graphically, the 360 version doesn't look bad for being an over 14-year-old game, but I did feel that sections of it were really dark, especially in cutscenes taking place while inside dimly lit areas. In contrast, there was also cutscenes which I felt were too bright and overblown, which made the characters look super pale and almost glowing. Combat also wasn't bad and improved from the first game, but that definitely became faster and more fluid in later games, so it did sometimes feel a slog at times where you were just waiting for the next enemy to attack, which occasionally took longer than it should have, as it seemed the elected next attacker was stuck, so I was unable to complete their action and no one else wanted to go, so I had to readjust Ezio's position to where they were unstuck. Even with the issues I did face, especially with the save bug I encountered, I would still highly recommend AC2 being played due to the good story and characters. If you do go to play this though, I would suggest doing so with the version that is part of the Ezio collection, as the graphics have obviously been slightly upscaled and I don't remember encountering any of these bugs when playing it last year that I did in the 360 version, so this is the optimal way to play the masterpiece of a game. Thank you for watching this video, and I want to send a special thank you to anyone who watched or interacted with my last video. It was something different and I'm glad people seem to take to it. I also want to again say sorry for how long it took for this video to come out, but I hope you appreciate the issues I went through with the technical problems I faced. It would be greatly appreciated if you made it this far that you give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, as well as leave any comments below on any improvements I can make to this type of video, or even any memories you have of AC2. Hopefully see you in the next one.